All right, breaking news. What if I told you that millions of small business owners literally just dodged a $10,000 fine? That's right. A new controversial business update just took an effect a couple of moments ago. And I'm going to go ahead and break down and talk about what is the latest update as it relates to the BOI filing. Is it required? Do we still need to do it? And what the Treasury is saying about it. So I'm going to be breaking down this video and you're going to be able to learn exactly what it is. So let's just start with the basics for those of you who may not know exactly what it is. So the beneficial ownership information BOI reporting rule was introduced under the Corporate Transparency Act in 2021. And the goal was to be able to crack down on money laundering, fraud, and the use of anonymous shell companies for illegal activities. So what was the requirement? What was the rule? So basically what it did was it said small businesses were supposed to file reports identifying anyone who owns or controls at least 25% of the company. That information would then be sent to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, also known as FinCEN, which is a division of the US Treasury. So what happened was that it required about 32.6 million small businesses, including LLCs, corporations, and partnerships, were required to go ahead and report under this new rule. So what were the penalties under this? So businesses that failed to file the reports by the deadline, which was March 21st, 2025, could face civil penalties of up to 591 per day. That's adjusted for inflation, criminal penalties for up to $10,000, even face jail time for up to 2 years. And it was one of the most sweeping financial transparency laws in US history until the Treasury finally backed off and decided to go against it. So why did the government decide to go ahead and suspend the enforcement of the BOI? So there's a couple things. So number one, there was a lot of backlash from small business owners. So as you can imagine, millions of small business owners felt that it was an unnecessary burden to go ahead and file this report. Unlike large corporations, many small business owners don't have teams of accountants and lawyers to be able to handle all this compliance. So, and it required a whole bunch of filing reports, keeping ownership information up to date, risking massive fines for simple mistakes felt overwhelming. And many small businesses called it, a nightmare, especially if you are a family owned business, freelance, or even have a small LLC. There was also legal challenges and political battles. So there was a whole bunch of lawsuits that came out of this, and it changed the rules. It kept pushing back the deadline, and even Trump, called the rule outrageous and invasive. So some business advocates warned that it could actually hurt entrepreneurship and discourage people from going ahead and forming small business entities. And that was a huge issue as well. And there's also an issue with the major policy shift as well. So foreign companies ended up being in the crosshairs because of this. So like the biggest twist as it relates to this is that the Treasury now says it wants to apply the rule only to foreign companies now. So that means that while domestic businesses get a pass, at least for now, now they're looking to only roll this out to foreign businesses operating in the US, and they'll still be required to go ahead and report ownership details. So that change could have a huge consequence for people who have foreign entities, and some experts worry that making the US easier for people to go ahead and create anonymous domestic businesses and turn it into a basically a shell company to be able to do whatever activities that they want to do. So what does this mean for you? Why is this important? So now that the Treasury has put a pause on the enforcement of the BOI reporting rule, what should small business owners do next? Okay, so even though you might not be required to take immediate action, this decision could have some long-term impacts on small businesses, foreign companies, and even future financial regulations. So let's break those down and talk about exactly what you need to know. So number one, there's no need to rush to file your BOI report for now. So if you haven't done it, you're in luck. There's no requirement for you to go ahead and file it right away. That's probably the biggest takeaway from this announcement is that small businesses no longer have to meet that deadline by March 21st, 2025 for the reporting. So that means if you're preparing to gather documents with your ownership information, file your report, you can put those efforts on pause for now. If you're worried about the penalties for non-compliance, the Treasury has confirmed it won't enforce the fines and also won't enforce any criminal charges at this time. So if you've already submitted it, well, there's no action required on your part, but you may want to keep out and be on the lookout for any updates as it relates to this. So that's going to be key. So one thing to be aware of is just because enforcement is paused doesn't mean the rule is gone forever, right? So the government has not repealed the Corporate Transparency Act yet. It has simply chosen not to enforce it at the moment. So there could be some more updates as it relates to this, but one of the big announcements is it's going to be put on pause indefinitely until further notice. So the bottom line is, while there's no immediate risk of penalties, business owners could still need to be aware of what the law is going to evolve and what's going to happen in the future. So you just want to make sure that you stay informed as it relates to this. The government may revise, they may try to reinstate the rule, and the Treasury's decision to put the enforcement on pause suggests that officials are really reconsidering this rule. Again, there was a lot of controversy when it came out, and there's a lot of political pressure, there's legal challenges, a lot of business concerns. However, there are actually three possibilities and three outcomes that can happen that business owners should be aware of, right? So number one, the rule could return with some modifications. So the Treasury may decide to rewrite parts of the rules, probably exempting more small businesses, or maybe even making it more simple to be able to go ahead and file the requirements. If this does happen, the government could introduce new deadlines that business owners will need to follow. So that's going to be number one. Number two is that the rule could be permanently removed, which is going to be a great news for a lot of small business owners. So if Congress or the courts rule that the BOI requirement is unconstitutional or too burdensome, then the law could actually be struck out completely, which is a great thing for a lot of small business owners. However, it is unlikely in the near future, as financial transparency laws typically have support on both the Republican and the Democratic side. So that's going to be key. Number three, a new administration could come in and enforce the rule aggressively. So while the current Treasury Department is choosing not to enforce the penalties, a future administration could come in and it could change and have a completely different stance on this matter. So that means that business owners who ignore the law completely could actually be caught off guard if the enforcement actually comes into place. So bottom line is this: just because the rule is on hold right now doesn't mean it's going to be gone for good. But chances are seems like this is going to be a longer term kind of pause. So, if you're a business owner, if you have an LLC corporation, you just want to keep an eye out on the updates from the Treasury, Congress, and the courts. Also understand, if you do run a foreign company and have a foreign entity, you want to make sure you pay attention. One of the biggest changes announced by the Treasury is that they still want to be able to enforce this rule to foreign companies. So that means if you own a foreign LLC, a corporation, a partnership that does business in the United States, you are still going to be required to go ahead and file the report. If you have another type of branch or international company that's operating outside the US, you want to do so as well. And then also, if you work with foreign investors or partners who own part of your company, you still may be required to go ahead and fill out the BOI report. So that is the latest update as it relates to this. I'll be sure to give you some more updates as the news comes out, but that's what I want to share with you all. I'll see you in the next one. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.